Good morning.
Hi there. Speaking.
Morning.
Fighting with Outlook for a second. And as usual, it's winning. Okay, I am gonna open up the Etherpad. Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Is Larsh here with us yet? We need Larsh because he's doing the demo. Bum, bum, bum. I'm going to pause the recording and then restart it once he joins, just so that there's not lots of dead time at the beginning. Into the Etherpad. And the link to the Etherpad is going in the chat, just so folks have it. So it's the agenda is essentially for this week, the demo of CNV working, talking about that a bit, making folks aware that we're actively looking for some VM workloads that we can use to test out CNV. And that's sort of folks who are involved in Open Infra Labs. If you have ones you want to try, if you have apps you're interested in running, we can see about doing that. Just reach out to myself or Bill, or just to the mailing list, and we will sort of give you a spreadsheet to try and gather what you think your needs are going to be, and then try and coordinate a time and the like. Without any further ado, I'm gonna hand it over to Larsh.
I'm actually going to ask you to put me at the end. I had hoped to be up this morning doing some work, but there were some networking issues that appeared to mysteriously cleared up about 5 minutes ago. So all of a sudden, I'm able to access things again. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on and what impact that had on the cluster.
Okay, cool.
You too.
Sorry?
Some BU resources, Lars?
Yes.
Yeah, we were affected by that as well. It looks like it's back up.
Yeah.
Cool. So Parthay is here with us. I wanted to introduce Parthay Kandaria, who is an intern with the MOC this summer. He's a recent graduate of Northeastern and an internship that he did at Red Hat over the, or not an internship, but you were a co-op there, right, Parthay?
Yep.
And he is going to be, among other things, helping a little bit on some of the organizational stuff around this meeting, getting the videos uploaded to YouTube. That's a tiny slice of what he's doing. He's also doing some stuff to look at connecting. He redesigned the website for massopen.cloud, and he's doing some work to connect in the monitoring system to give notifications of when the system is up and down. So he's sort of filling a lot of different roles. but I wanted to introduce him to the folks on the call.
Hey, Pate, nice to meet you.
Higan was his supervisor over the co-op. And then the other thing is I wanted to talk a tiny bit about agenda items for next week and the week after, because I think that now that we're starting to actually have stuff to touch, that we may want to try and tighten those up to things that are going to move the needle more. But I'm concerned that if I'm the one coming up with them instead of you guys, that I may be missing stuff that's actually important to everybody else. So, any topic people particularly want to see or talk about? Okay, there's a lot of quiet. So Bill and I will continue to do our best to come up with stuff, but if there's stuff people want to see, and we'll continue to cancel meetings when it doesn't feel like there are real agenda items.
One thing I'd say, it'd be great to have people thinking about what things they might bring to the Open Infra Labs, repo, any kind of tooling they might have, or things that I've expected to see, more contributions to really kind of get an upstream working of people sharing tooling, sharing ideas, prescriptions, or automation for setting up certain kinds of clouds, managing them and all that, and there's been good stuff about, getting NERC set up and the CNV effort and a project on KRIS, I think it is. But, it'd be great to see a wider variety of stuff. So I encourage, folks on this call to think about, getting the community more expansive and active. So, and certainly you can bring those things to the meeting as well, right? So.
There's also some work going on to schedule, so that there's sort of this group of people that are part of, there's 5 different projects that the MOC interacts with. Open Infra Labs is one of them. The MOC is another one. The Open Cloud Testbed is a third. There's sort of a group that meets every month or two of the principal investigators or the leaders of those folks, along with Jonathan Bryce from OpenStack Foundation. And there's some working groups that are falling out of that, some of which may not be interesting from a technical perspective, but they're things like who should we be talking to about funding and partnerships. But some of them are things like there's a storage working group that will be starting up. And after they have their first meeting, which unfortunately due to people's schedules may not be for a month or so, I'm going to ask them to come and talk about what it is that they're doing, so that if there are people we know and should be tying into it, we are doing that. I think I don't know that we talked in this meeting, but there's a scientific research interest group that is starting up a SIG, which is, I think, different STIG than the science working group. Have you seen this, the cloud research one?
I don't think I have, no.
So I'll make sure I drop the info on that into the notes.
In Etherpad.
Yeah, I linked it in the IRC channel, but it's definitely a different SIG, new one that's forming, and it's focused specifically on research topics around cloud utilization, cloud usage patterns, that sort of stuff. So stuff that probably is in the same wheelhouse as a lot of folks that are interested in the Open Infra Labs effort.
Interesting.
I'll make sure I send that out, or that I drop that in here as well. Those were the majority of the agenda items. We created a ticket in case there are things that people would like to see worked on upstream. We haven't really had a whole lot to say about that, but there's a meeting going on. I guess it's like today, if I'm not mistaken, to actually start talking about areas that that need some focus. I guess it's basically a group of the folks on the Red Hat engineering team that works on OpenStack projects. I guess regularly does some sort of coordination meeting, and this is that. It's not the last time we're going to have a chance to give them feedback. I just wanted to bring it up again.
There is, Michael, there is also going on right now within Red Hat a virtual monitoring meetup where they're discussing issues around.
Sorry, that's what this actually
Yeah,
was.
that's 3 days this week, and I've been hopping on and off as my schedule permits. But they're talking about, you know, OpenShift and OpenStack and other products, and how to, and if people want to, produce an integrated, you know, kind of monitoring environment that covers all of the products and what the challenges are, and, you know, software choices and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that going on.
Cool. If there's any kind of a report out, if you could ask them if there's a way for them to share it with this group, that would be
Sure. I'll see if I can figure that out.
cool.
We could maybe get Leif Madsen to join us in the future to, you know, he's kind of a principal in that effort, and give us a readout. Maybe I can talk to him about coming on next week.
Cool. How goes the network, et cetera, Lars?
Well, so things are back up and I can access them, but honestly, since we started this meeting, I have been waiting for one of the servers to reboot, which it has just done because physical servers take forever to reboot. The second server is probably going to kick off in a second. So, you know, if we have, I'm happy to talk about where things are and what we can do right now. But in terms of being able to do a live demo, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do that.
Okay. Well, let's talk. Let's do the first part then, and
Okay.
the second if we can.
So, first of all, we found that the process of installing OpenShift and CNV is reasonably straightforward, as long as you meet the assumptions of the installer. There are some weird edge cases that, of course, we're hitting because our environment didn't exactly meet those assumptions, but the workarounds have not been awful. It's just that there have been a couple of them necessary. What that means is we're able to get an OpenShift environment up and running fairly quickly and get the CNV operator installed and operating. What that gets us without any additional configuration work is the ability to spin up virtual machines and then expose network services on them via port forwarding mechanisms, which is not, you know, our end goal, but that means like you can start up a server running SSH and then you can expose that on what is essentially a random port. Then you use the API to figure out what port that is, and then you can connect to it. So the basic features work. We can start a VM, we can access it. They have outbound network access, and that all seems to work fine. What we're going to be working on over the next couple of days is trying to get the network configuration set up so that we can actually attach the virtual machines to local layer 2 networks so that they can directly have a public address and can expose services on arbitrary IP addresses that's not tied to the OpenShift port forwarding mechanism. And I think we have a pretty clear path forward for that. But having spent the past couple of days kind of getting everything reinstalled after we added SSD hardware to the environment, we're not quite there yet. So that's kind of the next step. And I guess that's the end of my spiel right now.
Are folks familiar with what CNV is and the goals for the project?
Silence.
Yes. I mean, people from Red Hat, of course.
And I think, Stig, we've talked about it in the past, but I just wanted to make sure that
Yes, I think you've outlined it before. Thank you.
Okay.
So, what do you not get with CNV? I'm kind of interested. I mean, if you look at it as the a kind of a replacement for OpenStack in circumstances where you want a few VMs, but mostly a containerized workflow.
Right.
What do you lose? What does it do for, like, I don't know, multi-tenancy or metadata or storage for the VM?
Well, I think multi-tenancy in particular is managed through OpenShift's project mechanism. So I think that that's okay. What I think you lose, though, is the flexible networking. One of the things you lose is the flexible networking that you get with OpenStack and Neutron. where as a consumer of OpenStack, you can create arbitrary networks and attach your workloads to those networks and create routers to connect the networks. You have a lot of control over that. With OpenShift, I believe that the way, at least we have things configured right now, networking is basically static and is administrator controlled. So you can create a VM and attach it to a network, but you can't create a multitude of private networks to create your own infrastructure for your services. So I think that's one of the big things that we're going to notice initially. I wish Rick Garcia were here, because he had somewhere a document that was kind of a feature comparison between OpenStack and and CNV, highlighting kind of the areas that CNV was not meeting the features provided in OpenStack, and I don't have that in front of me right now. I think that some other areas around, for example, like GPU and PCI pass-through, aren't available in CNV right now, although they're on the roadmap.
Oh, that's interesting to know. So from what you're saying, I can view my own VMs, and they'll turn up, they'll be presented through OpenShift's project mechanism, but I cannot create multi-tenant networking in this
I believe that is
environment.
the case, that's correct.
Does that, Lars, does that tie to the way that the install is done? I recall there being some discussion about potentially doing it on top of OpenStack as a way to gain those capabilities, but I'm not sure if I'm remembering clearly.
So I don't know enough about the OpenShift side of things to answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know what features exist for exposing OpenStack tenant networks into the OpenShift environment if you're running on top of it like that.
What about the storage side of things? Can you integrate with like your Kubernetes CSI drivers or that kind of stuff?
What is a Kubernetes CSI driver? So I will tell you that what I know about the storage is that you can back it with Ceph or NFS, or make use of local disk attached to the machine, as long as you're not looking for shared storage. I don't know if that is an answer to that question.
I think it probably does answer that question, yeah.
Okay, okay, just a second. I think I have found the feature gap analysis. Okay, let's see if this thing makes sense.
If the question was about the CSI drivers, I believe there's also a Kubernetes CSI driver that allows you to leverage OpenStack sender devices
Yes.
and sender device drivers.
Right. All right, so let me just taking a quick look at this spreadsheet. Let me see if I can stick this link into the chat here. I don't know who has access to this, so we'll see how that works out. But this is a spreadsheet that's kind of a feature by feature comparison between Rev, OpenStack, and CNV. And it's not, I think it's not completely filled in.
It does not look like it's public.
Okay, let me see if I can change that.
I was going to say, I don't know if Rick means for it to be public.
Yeah, I'll ask Rick. Okay, I wasn't sure who would have access. I'll check with Rick on that one. But things that it highlights as missing in CNV that exist in OpenStack. Let's see if we can go through a quick list here. We get suspending a VM. That's not very interesting. NUMA support, GPU and PCI pass-through, so I was correct about that. Network quality of service stuff, it looks like. So it looks like the major one are the pass-through. There's some snapshotting. There's a variety of kind of storage management, snapshot and template and whatnot for your VM storage that's not supported in CNV right now. So a lot of the things that people rely on to do backups or versioning of their data aren't there right now.
What does it say about migration, Lars?
Let me see here. If we come back to VM lifecycle, migrating a VM. What it says is that, so this chart divides things into existence and maturity. So for existence, it says, yes, VM migration is a thing. For maturity, this chart says 25% for CNV. So I think the message there is that it's that the feature exists, but has not been exercised or fully developed yet.
It's a nice expression.
And let's see here, Cloud Init, I guess, supports. So mostly, I think mostly those are the big ones there for the most part. So the OpenStack column in this spreadsheet is empty a lot compared to the Rev column. So like if we did a comparison between Rev and CNV, there's a lot of places where CNV says, no, this feature is not supported. And this chart doesn't have data for OpenStack, so it's hard to make that comparison. And I'm not sure if that's because the people who originally filled this out were more familiar with Rev than OpenStack. So I'll check in with Rick and see if I can get this exposed to everyone on the call and see if there's something that's more current.
And it could be something from the CNV team, you know, as part of their beta that where they might have a list of caveats, you know, in a more concise form. So we can check on that too.
All right, so I've just emailed Rick to see if we can share that beyond Red Hat.
Cool. So assuming that the demo is not going to be able to happen because of the network issues that we were running into, I'm going to try and end us at 9:30 on the theory that unless there's other stuff for us to talk about, people have other things they'd rather do. As nice as it is to see you all.
Michael, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So if I want to get the latest documents that are related to Operate First or Open Infra Labs, is there a place wherein I can just go and take a look? I know that for one, we were having GitLab repository. So is there anything else that is being maintained apart from that?
The GitLab repository and the Open Infra Labs website, sorry, and the Operate First website. So the Operate First stuff is largely there on the Operate First website, or sorry, on the Open Infra Labs website. One of the things that I'm hoping we're going to do over the course of the next, depending upon how many cycles Parthay has, I'm hoping that we can get him to help us a little bit on that website as well. But really, we're trying to do everything we can in that GitLab. So if there's stuff that you think is missing or that you want to see there, you can also create issues there and come along. Oh, this is never good when you're getting a phone call from our CPA on the day taxes are due. So hopefully that's good news. Like I made a mistake and you paid too much. I'm not sure if that answered your question, Gagan.
Yeah, I mean, I was just taking a look at openinfralabs.org website, and I can't find any documentation. It is just one HTML page which is out there.
Right, and then it's a link. It's a link straight over to the GitLab and the IRC channel.
Yes.
And being on the mailing list or reading the mailing list archives. One of the things that I'm in the middle of writing up, and I say the middle because I thought it would be done by Monday and it is halfway done now, is sort of a summary of all the different moving parts that are going on, tied in with initiatives over the past roughly 2 months. And we're going to start trying to do a monthly update, which is less of a technical part typically, and more, sorry, I think that's some loud background there. So that's something that's a little bit less about the technical details that we're hoping to work through in this meeting and more about here's all the other moving parts, here's where we've presented and where we've had requests for info. So for example, we had an outreach from a new OpenStack Foundation member to talk about what is Open Infra Labs and learn more about that. And so just creating a written document instead of telling people about that in a meeting seemed like a better use of people's time.
Okay.
So, but if you have an interest in giving us feedback on what you might like to see in the Open Infra Labs website, that would be good.
Yeah, right. So my point was, just to make sure that whatever I want to discuss hasn't been discussed already. So I just want to make sure that it, whatever I'm going to bring forward for our next meeting is going to actually make sense. So that's the reason I was asking.
You can also hit up Bill or I, who've been at pretty much all the meetings, and we can help you with that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michael.
As evidenced by the potential lack of agenda items for next week, I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other stuff that people wanted to talk about before we call it? Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Lars. Thank you.